Hello there, this is Steve Kaufman here. Today I want to talk a bit about my recent experience with my Russian, where I have started speaking now with a tutor, and I've started writing and having my writing corrected within Link. And I have spent 2 years doing a lot of listening. My major activity in my language learning has been listening. 70% or so or more. I've recently got a new tool, by the way, is my little iPod Nano, and here are these tremendous earphones made by Roots, or I guess made somewhere in China, but distributed by Roots. $14. I can take them running. The sound is tremendous, and I got I don't know how much stuff on here. I use my iTunes, and away I go. So mostly I've been listening. But now I've decided I want to work on my output, because when I speak Russian I make a lot of mistakes. So my first session with my tutor, I did quite well for about 15 minutes. I seemed to be able to remember words. I was able to say things, and all of a sudden I just got tired. I think, you just get tired, and all of a sudden when you're tired you can't remember things as well. I guess it's like performing in sports. So I was exhausted. After 20 minutes I wanted out of there. Spoke for half an hour. Then I wrote 2 pieces which were corrected by my tutor. And of course the way it works in Link, when it's corrected, all the inappropriate phrasing is made into correct phrasing, so the result may not be elegant, but it's correct Russian. So then I recorded that and I listened to it many times, focusing on some of the cases and things of that nature. Not trying to understand whether it's dative for instrumental case or some other case, but just to know that when you say, между, between something or other, it's going to sound like this rather than like that. So I did that, and then I had my second discussion with my tutor, and with all the effort that I put into writing and trying to think about the language and how I wanted to say things, my second session with the tutor was just a joy, and I was able to speak for 60 minutes, and I wasn't tired at all, and I could have kept on going. And so I was thinking about this whole business of speaking. 6 months ago, I occasionally would speak to someone in Russian. I spoke sometimes on the phone with Anna, who is the wife of Mike, our programmer. They're both Russian. But it was tiring because I didn't have the words. I couldn't say anything. Every session sort of ended in defeat, and I didn't enjoy doing it. Possibly it's good for me to do that, but I didn't enjoy doing it. I far preferred listening and reading, and like right now when I'm reading now a book by Edward Radzinsky here on Stalin in Russian, and there's words, of course, that I don't understand, but I enjoy it. So I was quite happy doing and of course I listened. I'm listening to Yama by Kuprin here, which is just a lovely novel, and the narrator, his voice, the way he does it, the dramatization is just tremendous. Very happy. But now I am enjoying the output. And I think what I take away from that is, in language learning, you should start to speak, and I've said this before, you should start to speak when you feel like speaking. There should be no obligation to start speaking until you feel like speaking. And for some people that's early, and of course it depends on your situation. Now if you're in a hurry to improve your spoken language, then it's conceivable that you start speaking earlier. But I was in no hurry, so it didn't matter to me. I just want to check to see if my sound thing is still working. Yes, it is. Okay. So I was in no hurry, and so I waited, and I was happy doing what I was doing. But if I was under some pressure to improve my speaking, perhaps I would have started speaking earlier. And I would certainly combine the speaking with writing, and I would do what I'm doing with the writing, which is every time I get my corrected writing back on Link, I record it, and I'm hoping to get a native speaker to record it for me. I tried it with my tutor, but the sound on Skype wasn't good enough. And then I have now a playlist in iTunes, which is going to be my recorded writing in Russian, and I will be gradually accumulating more and more examples of what I tried to say in Russian, but corrected, turned into real Russian, that I record, that hopefully a native speaker records for me, and I'm going to listen to this, and I will remember the times that I tried to express these thoughts, and how I didn't express them. I didn't use the right case or this or whatever, the right word, and then this is how it's expressed. And so those things have meaning for me. They're sticky, and I believe if I continue doing this, that I can get fairly good in speaking Russian correctly. and I think I'll get there faster than if I try to remember all these explanations in English, which have little meaning for me. I'm even hoping that I'm going to chat with a person in our office about different usage patterns in English based on the 10 questions that I outlined earlier: who, where, what, and so on and so on. And I'm hoping people will do this in Russian, and so then I can listen to an explanation about Russian, but in Russian, hopefully with a transcript that I can import in the link, saving words and phrases especially. And so all of these ways are going to enable me, through this heavy emphasis on listening, to get a good feel for Russian so that I can produce it naturally. But I think we do, everything you read about the language teaching, the teachers and how can we get people to say things in class? We're going to play games with them. We're going to have a project. We're going to do a video. We're going to do a YouTube. All of these things are aimed at getting people to use the language. And I just wonder if that's all that useful, whether we aren't better off to let the language capability kind of gestate and ferment and let people absorb words and let them develop some capability and some weapons so that they can defend themselves, so that when they go to speak that they have a better chance of having an enjoyable experience. Now, I admit that I am learning Russian as a dilettante. I am under no obligation. There's no hurry, so I can afford to take my time, but I'm not sure I would have gotten that much further doing it differently. I had lunch today with a person who commented on my blog and who lives in Vancouver and who attended university here, and he goes to these meet-up sessions where people meet to talk to each other in different languages, and he says he regularly meets people. His interest is in Chinese. He meets people who after 3 years at university can't speak, are nowhere. So, I'm not convinced that the effort that is put in fact, I know that I'm quite convinced that the effort that's put on getting people to produce the language early, I don't think it speeds up the process. However, when you are ready to speak, it's probably a good thing to do. And probably if I were disciplined enough or motivated enough, then at an earlier stage in my Russian, once a week to speak or to try to write is probably a good thing. It primes the pump. It forces the brain to try and think of what's been sort of building up in there. But not necessarily any more than that. And then I think as you get better, you'll want to speak more, you'll want to write more. Like I thoroughly enjoy writing in Russian now. I have a phonetic keyboard that works on my Mac, so I don't have to figure out where things are on a Russian keyboard. I love trying to express myself in Russian, and I think it's very good for my Russian. It makes me more conscious, more observant. I notice things more now when I'm with the language. I notice some of the spelling, the little squigglies, the little sounds, the B there for the soft sound or whatever they say, all the sort of what I would refer to as junk code in Russian, and the funny ways that they spell the Magu is actually Mogu, which I know when I read it, but when I go to write it, sometimes I write it the wrong way. So having to write it, having to use it, forces me to be a little more observant. But I wouldn't want to be put into that situation until I had enough capability in order for it to be a successful and pleasant experience. So all I'm saying is I'm happy with the way my Russian is going. I'm happy to have spent so much time in a somewhat passive learning mode of reviewing words and phrases and listening and reading and doing all of this on LingQ, of course. But I'm also very happy now to be engaged with a tutor, talking to her, enjoying talking to her, writing, getting her corrected writing back with all of her comments and, of course, her words of encouragement. So just to say that, one final comment I want. Some people say, I still can't speak as well as I would like, blah, blah, blah. Many of those people speak very well. I mean, you can't be a perfectionist. This is for Anna in Brazil in particular. You speak very well. Don't be too demanding of yourself. Now I'm going to cut this off. Bye for now.